All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a look at plots and how to make them exciting. So, we need to start with your lesson objectives, which are that by the end of this lesson, you will be able to define plot and explain its connection to theme development, define tension and explain its role in writing interesting narratives, and list and define the elements of plot and explain how each of them relates to theme and tension development in a narrative. So your keywords are plot, tension, exposition, inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. And that brings us to this. Plot is just everything that happens in a story. It's the beginning and middle end of a story. So it pretty much is theme because this is where topic lives. This is where author attitude lives. It is everything that happens in the story. But writing a good story is more than just telling what happens first, second, third, etc. We need tension, otherwise known as the sense of excitement or anticipation that keeps your reader wanting to read more. And this tension comes from how we build our plot through the elements of exposition, inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Each of these introduces details about our characters and their conflict that help build excitement and reveal theme in a way similar to how one might ride a roller coaster. The exposition is the start of the beginning of your story. This introduces the main character and the setting and gives just enough detail about who, where, when to orient the reader and let him or her predict the conflict that the main character will face. This should be 1 to maybe 2 chapters of the story. And the exposition is our first hint at character development and conflict, so it's also our first introduction to the topics that the author is introducing as part of their theme. On our roller coaster analogy, this is the part of the ride where you're sitting in that car, getting buckled in, looking up at that big, long slope, but the ride hasn't begun yet. Your inciting incident is where things begin. This is the event that puts your main character into the conflict. It's brief, it's the end of a chapter length, it's really there and done, and it's exciting and gets things going. So again, this ties to theme through its relationship to conflict and starting your character development. And this would be the part of a roller coaster ride where the cars first start to move. Rising action is everything after the inciting incident but before the climax. The role of this section is to build tension while the main character tries to solve the problem. They'll have some ups and downs, they'll win some things, they'll lose some things, and it's the longest part of the story while they try and figure out what's going on. This is the part of the roller coaster ride where the car climbs the big slope and you start to anticipate the drop to come. It's also the part of the story where we really start seeing who this character is and what their weaknesses are and how they're going to have to try and get around those in order to solve the problem. Which takes us to our climax, otherwise known as the turning part. This part of the story seems to have everything go wrong for the character, but it also has the most tension because this is also the part of the story where the character has everything to gain and everything to lose, and it really looks like they're going to lose all of it. The main character starts to figure out what the solution to his or her problem might be. It's a brief section, maybe 1 or 2 chapters, and it would be the equivalent of a roller coaster ride where the car is at the very top of that big peak before it goes into a drop. This is the part where we really start to see character development because this is the part where the character could easily give in to their dark side, but will confront their problem and show us a lot about the author's attitude towards the topic being addressed as they start to resolve this issue. And that takes us into the downhill stretch or falling action, where the main character starts to put the solution to their problem together. It might be 4 or so chapters long, but this is going to be a lot shorter than the rising action because this is the part of your roller coaster ride where the car drops down a drop. So exciting, but fast and over before you know it. And it's, again, showing character development and conflict resolution in here that both tie back to theme. And that takes us to the resolution where the problem is solved and the reader has closure with the characters and their storyline. It's essentially your wrap-up. It might be one chapter long or maybe a chapter and an epilogue where your roller coaster car glides back into the station and comes to a stop. You should avoid to be continueds or cliffhangers here because you want your reader to feel satisfied that everything has been resolved. That's the part of a resolution that is important. It's major for showing theme because this is where you see the end all of how your character has grown and how they've solved their problem. And that would be plot in a nutshell.